I played a game recently called Morrowind, so I'm sure everyone knows about this game, same as Oblivion and Skyrim, but I never actually played it as the only things I've heard were it's old, outdated, looks awful, yada yada yada. Here's the thing, I should probably completely ignore what people say from now on. I'd say what The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is a messy half game, which has a pretty cool half, and the rest is easily bypassed through mods and console. So I would recommend it today. It's pretty good, if anything it's more playable than Oblivion. What is it about? The world is in peril, the Empire is taking over everything and the Dark Elves succumb to their outlander ways. Living on their mystical volcanic island in the north, they toil day to day to make ends meet, governed by the great houses. Slavery, disease and daedra and wild, hostile fauna widespread in their daily lives. But it all might change when the mystical hero, I could never pronounce it, Nerevarin comes back to save them all. Also, we're all racist pricks. So structure here is a little difficult. I'm gonna be very rambly and basically just comparing Skyrim to Morrowind. The quest text. I think the thing games had back then is a whole lot more backstory to absolutely everything in the game. It was a lot more descriptive with words and overall dialogue than it is now. Newer games are faster paced, impatient and safe. You won't randomly do something which is gonna ruin a playthrough. You won't have a gigantic loss of progress because the autosave isn't there. You won't get stuck because NPCs suck at giving directions. Everything is convenient, simple, straightforward. And honestly, that takes away from a lot of the world. It makes it hollow and empty, turning it into a desert with roadside attractions. World of Morrowind is surprisingly full of random pointless things which don't really do anything. You can walk into countless tombs and have nothing important in them, but they are there just because. There are endless named NPCs and you can never be sure whenever they are actually important to the plot or just have names because people put some honest effort into the game. It's baffling how often games go into generic names now. This game isn't like that. Every single part of the world seems thought out and carefully crafted. And the quest text reflects that, with one of the quests, just for the sake of example here, the text of that quest offered a riddle. And the riddle wasn't about solving some puzzle or beating something specific, some specific way or anything of the sort. It was literally about finding the way to a shrine. Nowadays it would just be marked and there would be some NPC who asked some stupid questions. It's very robotic. Fake and just dead nowadays. I definitely felt like Morrowind is an actual place with people who live their lives and try to do their best. Playing Skyrim, I felt like the world was divided 30% friendly NPCs which offer quests, 40% of the world was bandits, and the rest is Dwemer ruins with whatever lives and knows, and some other minor things. It's insane how little there is, and every step of the way there is some sort of guidance toward the next quest. Players aren't allowed to do their own thing, they're instead walking through a carnival of sorts and having all those attractions thrown at them. Skyrim is dead and resurrected into a fake game world. Morrowind is alive and well, and place for people of Tamriel to be. Fake or not, those people feel like people. Maybe I'm being confusing, but I think it's best explained through the comparison between these two. And I enjoyed the aspect of this being a living world a lot more than the newer version of Elder Scrolls with an undead world. Sadly though, it's also suffering from certain problems which are pretty major and were actually changed for the better in the later iterations of the Elder Scrolls. So for example, I have a variety in the quests themselves. The thing about a good quest to me is that it's engaging. I like to feel involved and like my decisions matter. So the best example is the blood on the snow in Skyrim. You're investigating a serial murder of women in the city and are free to make your own conclusions as to whom might have done it. You can actually fail it and get more people killed, but eventually the game will railroad you into naming the right suspect. And here is an example from Morrowind. In the beginning there is a tax collector. Everyone hated him because he kept taking everyone's money and living a lavish life. He was a jerk and nobody really missing him. He kept flaunting his wealth at everyone. But he did disappear and the Empire is a little iffy about that. So a player finds him hidden near some mud crabs. Strangely enough, the money was left untouched. So now it's investigation as to whom might have done it. And the first suspect is the person who spent the most time with him. I think they were supposed to be lovers and Vicky says so, but I don't think it's ever fully stated. Anyway, that person points to another whom the taxman argued with. That guy instantly admits, "Yeah, I killed him, what you gonna do about it?" So there are only two choices, kill him right there and then, or agree to let him go. You can't lie to him, you can't beat him and report him to the guards, you can't decide to side with him but tell him to pay reparations somehow, you can't do anything. That's it. There's no murder mystery, no real investigation, it's just step 1, 2, 3, done. Kill the bastard. Games moved a lot further than that since then, and this is a similar problem with all the quests in the game. It's always killing somebody or doing a skill check and not killing them, and 90% of the situations is just murder. Skyrim is a lot better in that regard. Not always, of course, but there are choices you can make. Siding with different people in the same quest, keeping something instead of giving it, and so on and so forth. The only real choice for Morrowind is which great house you'd like to join. And also Thieves Guild and Fighters Guild don't really like each other, but it doesn't really feel like much of a choice, and instead it's just mutually exclusive path for the sake of replayability. I always thought it was absolutely stupid how you can do everything in Skyrim, especially stupid how I became an archmage, never training any spells and just passing the first ward exercise. But this felt a lot better than being locked out just cause. It's two different approaches, and I personally prefer the Skyrim way of doing things, although it's obviously not ideal. I want to experience as much as possible in a playthrough without having to slog through the beginning and other steps over and over again just because I want to try Tilvania this time, and curious if some minor dialogue may change. There is also another problem as to how the quests go in Morrowind. More often than not, there is a lengthy chain of loosely connected quests, if connected at all, which send the player all over the place to do all sorts of things. Very often it's killing someone. Slightly less often it's talking to someone and getting them to agree to whatever the quest giver told you. And lastly, there are quests to collect something. That's like 90% of the quests. I felt like the destination sucked. Like, really sucked. But the journey wasn't that bad. Those quests in between, some of them had interesting developments, like finding the secret chamber behind a tapestry in one of Redrun's mansions with a prisoner in it, or hunting a netch with a fork in the middle of nowhere, or crawling through the sewers and finding a secret altar to the mad god. Those were a lot more interesting journeys than anything Skyrim had. But Skyrim, on the other hand, could branch and, for example, instead of fighting through the mansion to get a prisoner out, perhaps there could be some other way you might give him some poison to pretend that he died and collect him when they dispose of his body. Or maybe give him armor so he can pretend to be a god while you distract the people. Maybe it won't be so fun, okay, but there would be at least something else. Actual choices. It's definitely a lot weaker in the older title. In addition, I'd also like to complain about how the main quests go for each storyline. I've done Tribunal for the Temple, Blood Moon for Falco, and the main quest is a member of the House Hlalu. So Tribunal flat out sucked. There was a huge city to explore, and instead player was shoved into the endless sewers which all looked the same. It was truly awful. I got lost countless times, and after some cool build-up, it suddenly ends with a barely any payback. Blood Moon was open and a more fun one, but it was pretty much running back and forth between Colony and the Fort. I liked the intrigue and slow unravel of betrayal, but it pretty much ended in 2 quests after that. And the main quest is huge amounts of build-up, talking to people, investigating, figuring out what's happening, and eventually finding out about the prophecy and the player's part in it. And it's an extremely tedious travel all over the place just to say 1 or 2 lines and then it's done. It leaves pretty much... it pretty much just ends. It's like a dog ate a script once Caius leaves. Cassius? Whatever his name is. That guy in that one city. You know who I'm talking about. Just poof, run around like a headless chicken now. And what also really pissed me off is what this was supposed to be a night-in move. Getting everyone to work together to beat this great threat, and in the end it's just get these 3 items and whack a thing for a bit. On my own. Not like Ordinators came to help, not like Vivek decided to move his skinny ass and help me kill a god. Nah, screw that, let me just levitate a bit more as I sit here mysteriously. It's idiotic. Why even bother? It would have been a lot better if the main quest was to tell everyone to fuck off since they don't believe the prophecy anyway, kill Vivek and take a Rave Guard and forge my own destiny, having to face Dagger 4 without any help or guidance, having to piece everything together myself. But it's clearly not intended way, and this other way is entirely bare bones. I hated it. At least in Skyrim, the player travels all over and gets to go on a fun adventure, even going back in time and in the afterlife with a beautiful sky. Meeting these great heroes who helped defeat the big bad. There was a start, the beginning, and the end. Sure, it was goofy, but it felt consistent and fun. Morrowind main quest was build up, tedium, nothing. I feel like we just ran out of time for something, so we had to rush after making the beginning of a main quest so damn slow. If I were to say a few more things about Oblivion here, Morrowind is a PC game. It was released on Xbox, the original one. It was released on Xbox, the original one, as far as I know, but the game definitely was made for PC. Oblivion and Skyrim not so much, which is obvious from the menus. But while Skyrim puts at least some effort into the port, Oblivion is a travesty. But horrific telescoped style FOV resets every time there's a dialogue, opened inventory, or a loading screen. The zoom in is extremely jarring and impossible to get rid of with console commands, needing mods which don't always work or break the game. And then there are the graphics. I'm generally not picky with those, but there's a certain skill to making low fidelity games, leaving things to the imagination and not putting details where necessary. This gives you games like UP Psycho, which isn't high quality visually, but it's okay. You can tell what everything is and, well, something is left to my imagination. It's not ugly. Oblivion is like people went out of their way to make everyone as ungodly hideous as physically possible. I to this day can't imagine any game which has characters as ugly as Oblivion. How did they manage to make them so morbidly grotesque, I'll never know. And this is together with the zoom in... No, just no. Oh yeah, and the hotkeys are jank with cancel, sprint and menu refusing to rebind or stick to the bindings or work in any way PC games are supposed to work. Just is what Morrowind is just a better game. Just a better made game. Anyway, I don't think there is much else to say. I'll just mention what console is a tilde key, the button to the left of one, and UESP.net offers a great list of commands to bypass the horrible combat that all Elder Scrolls seem to share. Morrowind is definitely the weakest when it comes to the combat, although an ability to create spells might be interesting if it was in a better game.